Heartbreaking new details in the accidental drowning death of Malcolm Jamal Warner.
This morning, fans and co-stars are mourning the shocking death of Malcolm Jamal Warner.
The actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, widely known for starring in the hit TV sitcom The Cosby Show, has died.
In the morning, Mr. Warner had surf lessons with his family.
Police in Costa Rica tell ABC News Warner drowned near a beach along the country's east coast.
The actor best known as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show.
The Emmy nominee won the hearts of Americans, starring as teenage son Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show.
They found Mr. Warner pretty quickly. They could see a shadow on the bottom of the seafloor.
Costa Rican officials say Warner drowned Sunday afternoon in the province of Limon.
Pulled him up and put him on top of the surfboard and gave the 5 respirations.
According to investigators, the 54-year-old was swept away by the sea's current before bystanders were able to pull him out of the water.
They worked on Mr. Warner for at least 30 minutes, and then he was unfortunately pronounced dead.
Dead at 54, found floating in Costa Rica, 2 days after calling out Hollywood. Accident or silenced? That's the question everyone is asking about Malcolm Jamal Warner. And if you think that sounds like a movie plot, wait until you hear what happened right before he died. Here's what we know. Malcolm Jamal Warner wasn't some washed-up actor. He was sharp, careful, and on a mission. Then out of nowhere, the world got Malcolm Jamal Warner's Final Update, a podcast that hit like a bomb. 2 days later, his body was pulled from the water. He was healthy. He wasn't reckless. He didn't just trip and fall into the ocean. So how did this man, one of the smartest, most deliberate actors of his generation, end up gone like that? This story is bigger than a freak accident. This is about why his voice had to be silenced right when it was getting too loud. Think about it. Malcolm Jamal Warner grew up in front of millions. Theo Huxtable, The Cosby Show. Everybody watched him. And unlike almost every other kid star from the 80s and 90s, he kept his head straight. He didn't end up in tabloids. He didn't burn out. He became the kind of grown-up Hollywood doesn't know what to do with. Clean record, clear mind, no drama. That made him dangerous. Because when a guy like that starts telling uncomfortable truths, people listen. And that's exactly what he started doing. You've seen Malcolm Jamal Warner's latest news everywhere now. It's not just because he died. It's because of what he said right before. In his Final Update, he basically ripped the mask off Hollywood. This man looked straight into the camera and said, "You're lying about who we are. You're lying about what black life looks like. And I'm done watching you profit from it." He said fame and money don't equal excellence. Survival does. And when he said it, you could tell it came from somewhere deep. But before we get to that podcast, let's talk about the kind of person he was. Warner wasn't out here trying to be everyone's best friend in the industry. He directed shows. He made Grammy-winning spoken word albums. He popped up on Suits and American Crime Story. He could have been just another guy cashing easy checks. But no, he used his platform to tell the truth. And it started years ago when Bill Cosby's scandal blew up. That was the first time Malcolm stopped being quiet. He said what nobody else wanted to say. He said it was unfair that The Cosby Show got pulled off TV while movies from Roman Polanski and Woody Allen kept playing like nothing ever happened. He said that erasing the show also erased a huge chunk of his livelihood. He said, out loud, that the industry's double standards were clear. Now ask yourself, would you have said that knowing how Hollywood works? That was the first time Warner poked the bear. And he never stopped after that. He kept talking about the way black actors get boxed in. Talking about how Hollywood only wants one version blackness, the kind that sells stereotypes. And in that Final Update, he said something that hit like a punch to the gut. Hollywood loves to sell the hood image because it makes money. Violence, poverty, that's all they want to show. And they erase the joy, the strength, the resilience that's real life. He didn't just call it out. He called it theft. He said Hollywood steals from black communities, steals music, fashion, style, makes billions, and then acts like it came from nowhere. He said enough was enough. Do you see why people think Malcolm Jamal Warner's Final Update was more than just a podcast? And here's where it gets wild. He wasn't just talking in general. He even pointed to things he had seen himself. Remember when he worked with Meghan Markle on Suits? In an interview, someone asked him if he knew she was black. His answer was, "The great thing is that she knew." That sounds polite, right? But listen to what he was really saying. He was saying, straight up, that Hollywood likes black actors who pretend not to be black. That's not shade. That's a fact. And the way he said it, smooth but sharp. Now, fast forward. After that, he starts his own podcast called Not All Hood. And that show becomes his platform to talk about all of this with no filter. And then that final update happens. 2 days later, he's gone. So what happened? Here's what the official line says. He was swimming in Costa Rica. The current was too strong. He drowned. End of story. But is that the end of the story? Because the people who know him know he wasn't careless. He wasn't reckless. He planned everything. He was smart. And he knew how to stay safe. Does that sound like someone who would take a risk like that right after dropping the most explosive podcast of his life? Here's another thing. The timing. Why does it always happen this way? Look around. Chadwick Boseman dies after years of talking about black heroes. Nipsey Hussle is murdered after talking about black ownership. Dave Chappelle speaks out, and Hollywood tries to cancel him. And now Malcolm Jamal Warner? Right after Malcolm Jamal Warner's final update starts trending? Does that sound random to you? Let's rewind to what he was saying, because it matters. In that last podcast, he told the truth about Hollywood's love for fake diversity. He said, "You want us as long as we fit your box. You want our culture. You want our pain. You don't want us." And he was building something different. He wasn't just ranting. He was making a plan, a platform, a way to tell these stories without waiting for anyone's permission. He was saying, "I'm not going to ask you to let me in anymore. I'll build it myself." And that scared the hell out of them. The Malcolm Jamal Warner latest news right now keeps saying drowning. But the real latest news is that he was winning. People were listening. For years, Warner kept his private life locked up. He didn't talk about losing Michelle Thomas. He didn't talk about his breakup with Regina King. He didn't drag anyone through the mud. But when it came to the big picture, when it came to the system, he never held back. This was a man who understood that if he spoke softly but carried a big truth, people would have no choice but to hear him. And let's not pretend this was some random vacation. Costa Rica isn't a dangerous beach spot for someone like Warner. He wasn't cliff diving. He wasn't out there drinking on a boat. He was living carefully, thinking about the next steps for Not All Hood. And then suddenly the waves take him? Really? Do you believe that? Picture the podcast. He's sitting there, passionate, not even raising his voice, but cutting deep. Talking about how media companies build empires out of a one-dimensional view of black life. Talking about how every time the truth tries to come out, someone shuts the door. And then 2 days later, the door shuts on him. Doesn't that make you wonder? Who decides what stories get told? Who decides which voices get amplified and which ones get erased? Malcolm Jamal Warner's latest news should have been about his next big move. It should have been about the growth of Not All Hood. It should have been about a new era where people tell their own stories. Instead, it's about a drowning. Does that feel like justice to you? Does that feel like an accident to you? Or does it feel like we all just watched another person get a race right when he was about to change something? Because let's be honest, Warner wasn't the kind of guy to play games. If he had lived another 5 years, 10 years, the things he was building would have been too big to ignore. He wasn't waiting for a seat at the table. He was building a whole new table. And then it all stopped. So now what? We can't get Malcolm Jamal Warner back. But we can keep his final update alive. We can talk about the things he was talking about. We can refuse to let people forget that a man with everything to lose still told the truth. And maybe, just maybe, we can ask the hard questions out loud. Do you think this was an accident? Or do you think this was a cover-up? Who else do you think is in danger for telling the truth? And what do you think he uncovered that scared them this much? Comment below. Tell me exactly what you think. And if you think Malcolm Jamal Warner's story needs to be heard by more people, hit like so this spreads. Because the more people talk about this, the harder it is for them to bury it. Malcolm Jamal Warner's latest news is not a drowning. It's a wake-up call. He tried to show us what was happening. Now it's on us to listen. So was it an accident? Or was Malcolm Jamal Warner silenced? You tell me.